Hello, hello, hello. Guess who I have with me for my very first Lead What You Live podcast with the one and only Tina Lizzio. There's only one of me and there's only one of you. So I have a very, 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 very special guest that I wanted to kick off this Lead What You Live podcast. And it is my grandmother, born Julia Odette Akinen, now Julie Ehrenberg. And I am so grateful that this amazing woman actually lives less than a mile and a half from me in sunny South Florida, and that we get to be here today to talk about her incredible life journey. She is still 92 years hot. And the fact that we get to be here together and regularly have incredible conversations, she has so much insight and wisdom and life experience that she has passed down to her family. And we're going to go on a journey with her today. So, Mémé, so in French, grandmother or grand-mère is Mémé. She's my Mémé. Welcome to Lead What You Live podcast with Tina Lizzio.
Thank you, Tina. I'm happy to be here.
I'm so happy that you're here and that we've talked about this for a while.
Yes.
Me wanting to leave this as part of your legacy for everyone. And so you were born July 31st, 1931
Yes.
in the French Algiers.
Yes.
So where do we begin?
Oh, see if I remember that far.
You have a very good memory like me. So
I do. I was born the sixth of the seven children. My parents had 4 sons and 3 daughters. I'm the last daughter, the 6th child. And needless to say, our home was always noisy. And since we made most of our conversation at a round table at dinner time, which was our lunch time, was our main time, the eldest son, the eldest person always spoke first. And we went down by age. Who could talk first, who could talk second and third and so on. I had to wait a while before I could be heard. So that's why now I tend to try to want to put my 2 cents worth as soon as I can.
Yeah, because you had to wait number 6.
I learned that young. And from then on, there was another child after me named Charlie, my favorite brother. And I am the last one of the 7 children, by the way. I am the 7th one alive. The other 6 are gone. But I remember them like it was yesterday. And I remember us young. Even when I dream of us young, which is funny.
In Algiers?
In Algiers. I was in Algiers, where I grew up, and after graduating from high school, there was a war going on between the French and the Arabs who wanted their country back from the French. So that war lasted 7 years.
Wow. How old were you?
Well, let's see. The war lasted until 1964. So I guess it started when I was around 10.
Right.
I left Algeria to join my sisters in the United States. They both were brides during the war. They married soldiers. One married in Algeria, and the second one, who didn't want to be a widow, waited till after the war to marry her boyfriend as soon as he was stayed back from the war in 1945, she joined him in Tennessee. His name was Roy, and they were married there. So now I had two sisters in America, and because we had to leave Algeria, because we were told, the French people were told to leave Algeria, I came to America. I had.
How did you come to America? You went right from Algiers to America. You didn't go somewhere else first?
My mother came with me to Paris to take the boat train, and the boat left from Cherbourg in France, the Queen Mary.
Famous Queen Mary.
Mémé's Queen Mary. And it was really like a bird who had been in a cage for 18 years. Now I was free. And
18 years old, 1950, and you came over on Valentine's Day. You arrived
I arrived on Valentine's Day.
in New York?
Yes, where my sister Marie met me. And that was really something. She took 3 days off from her work to show me New York, where, of course, it was just a little bit of New York, but I saw a lot of, day and night she took me out to see it. And the boys who were traveling on the same boat train with me, they were all students or past students, post-students. They insisted that I speak English with them because they thought I didn't speak well, but I spoke fluently, actually. I had 5 years of English in school. And as soon as my sisters married during the war, married GIs, I thought if I have to learn a foreign language, it should be English.
They married American GIs.
They made American GIs. The fact that the GIs came to Algiers before the Germans did was a really lifesaver for my family.
Tell us about that.
We were Jewish.
Yes.
And we were in trouble. The Jews of France were being sent away to death camps or wherever. But in Algeria, they had not reached us yet, although they were in Tunisia, the country next.
Yeah.
And Rommel, German general, was fighting the French people who lived in Tunisia. My brother had enlisted in a French army to go fight the Germans, and they sent him to Tunisia, where he was taken prisoner.
Which brother?
Marcel, the second brother. He enlisted at the age of 19. He was taken prisoner, and he was missing in action for over a year. We found out that he had been taken prisoner and sent to a camp from where he escaped. And from there, he was able to enlist in de Gaulle's army. And then from then, he was fighting either in de Gaulle's army or Leclerc's army, but he was always fighting. And he fought for 4 years.
Wow.
He had all the decorations that France gives, because he was wounded twice.
Was he the only one of your 4 brothers that was in the military?
No. My oldest brother was called first, and he served in Algeria for a while, and then he was sent to Paris, France. And
so how was that for the family with him being away?
it was okay because being born in Algeria, he was not allowed to fight people in Algeria because you could fight your cousin or you could fight somebody.
Oh, so at least he wasn't fighting.
That's right.
Okay.
He had to send away. Same thing happened to my third brother, who was enlisted at the age of 19. Everybody has to serve for 2 or 3 years. And he didn't want to stay in Algiers because he didn't want to fight some of his friends who happened to be Arabs. So they sent him to Paris. And then they sent him home later because by then the two older brothers were already in the service. And he was the last one who could help the family. My father had been fired from his job. He worked at the post office, which was under French government.
Did your mother work?
No, my mother was a housewife.
She had a lot of free time with 7 children.
That's right. But my father was fired from his job. And then...
and how was that for the family? So your brothers were away.
Yes.
It's you and your sister Raymonde and Marie.
And then they went to America. So that was difficult. And at school, the children who were on top of their class could raise the French flag on Monday mornings in a courtyard while we sang the French national anthem. And I happened to be first in my class one Monday. And my mother bought me a tricolor ribbon for my hair and a new apron over my dress. And the schools were all in our neighborhood, so my mother was watching from the fifth story balcony. And she saw that I was not raising the flag. And at noon, I came home with the teacher. And she said, "Why isn't my child raising the flag today?" And they said, "Because she is Jewish."
Wow.
Jews are not allowed to raise the flag anymore. Soon after that, I was forbidden to attend school.
Because you were Jewish?
Yes. There was only 7% students Jewish who could attend school.
So there was a limitation on how many, or you're saying that's what the population was?
Yeah, from the Vichy government in France. The Nazis told them they couldn't have more than 7% children Jewish attend school. So I was one of the 93%.
Good math.
Yeah.
That couldn't be in school.
That's right. And so my sister Marie, who was in high school at the time, and my brother Joe and me and my brother Charlie, we were all taken out of school. And we were all young. That's before the Americans landed. But on the 8th of November, 1942, there were sirens in 2 o'clock in the morning. And we didn't know what was happening. We could hear cannons, we could hear airplanes.
And you're 13
so we went
years old.
We went down to under the ground. You know, there was a place where we could hide from the bombs. And later, we could get out again. And we saw soldiers march down the street, and we didn't know who they were. We didn't know if they were Germans who came from Tunisia, or if they were soldiers who came in. It was Americans who came to save us. Americans, British, South African, Australians, Scotsmen, Irishmen, there were all kinds of uniforms walking on the street, and we applauded them. And they were walking up the street from the boats where they had landed. And we were so happy. Our lives were saved.
And this
Finally,
is in 1942. So actually, you were 11.
the 8th of November,
Wow.
1942, yes. After that, it was much better for us. Of course, my father had to wait a year and a half before he could get a job again. And he never got the money back that he lost not working. But while he was not working, my mother learned to make soap, and my father sold it from house to house. I learned to speak English quickly. And I thought if I'm going anywhere, it's going to be in America, which happened. And so eventually I went back to school. The reason I went back to school, we still hadn't heard from the Nazis. So there were still the same amount of people who could not go to school if they were Jewish. I have a maternal grandmother who was born from Christian parents. And the reason they were in Algeria was because my grandmother's father was a military officer who came to Algeria to colonialize the country against the Arabs. And that was in the 1830s.
Wow.
So they were promised a piece of land and a pension, and they could bring their family over. So my great-grandmother was married to my great-grandfather, who served in Algeria to colonialize. And shortly after, she was pregnant with my grandmother. Well, her husband, the military man, died of a sunstroke coming from northern France.
Wow.
Not used to the heat of the country. He passed away in Algeria. She was afraid of the Arabs. She came to follow her husband. But once he was dead, and she had that new baby, my grandmother, Marie Angélique de Loisel. So what she did is she put my grandmother to stay with her, the woman who birthed her.
It was Levy, right?
She was, yeah, the woman who, midwife, the midwife who brought my grandmother.
Oh, wow.
My great-grandmother left her with a midwife, and she took her husband home for burial, what have you, to settle his estate. And so we grew up. My grandmother became Jewish during her marriage.
The midwife wasn't Jewish.
The midwife was Jewish.
Was Jewish.
Their last name was Levy. And
she raised her like it was
raised her, and the mother didn't come back to get my grandmother.
She never came back.
She came back when the mayor wrote to her and told her, Marie is 21, she's of age to be married now. And unless you have someone for her, we have a man here who would make a good husband. So she came to Algeria to get my grandmother. And my grandmother told her, no, I'm going to stay here. She says, but you're not Jewish. You're going to marry a Jewish man. She said, I'm going to marry a Jewish man because this family is Jewish. And they raised me well. And for my marriage, I will become Jewish. So on her marriage day, she became Jewish. On her wedding day, she became. And this nice man turned out to be not so nice.
Mm.
He was abusive to her. And so he was a big guy. My grandmother was 4'10". And anyway, when she saw what was happening to her grandchildren in schools, and my grandmother was well educated, she decided to go to the academic where they, for the education of children. And she said, I was born a Christian. So now they had this law to be so-called good, is that if you had 25% grandparent who was not Jewish, you could have, you could ask for your children or grandchildren to go back to school, because you, as a grandparent, we were entitled to that. So my grandmother loved us so much that she did that for us, so we could go back to school.
I see, because she was born of two Gentiles,
Yes.
raised by the midwife,
Yes.
Levi, Jewish. She chooses to marry a Jewish man who was
Yes.
abusive in Algiers.
Yes.
And she went on to have children, your mother. She went on
Yes.
to have your mother.
My mother.
And so that's where, by birth, you're saying that you had a maternal grandmother.
25%
Who was-
non-Jewish.
Right. I understand.
So then I got to go back to school, so did Charlie.
Wow.
Joe was 14 years old. He couldn't, my family put him as an apprentice as a cabinet maker. And so he could make some money. My sister Marie didn't go back to school. She finished high school. And she went to work as an apprentice at a dressmaking atelier, in a shop where they make clothes for people. So she learned to sew there. So now
You were all able to go back to school
we were able to go back
because
to
your
school.
grandmother was able to vouch for the fact that you were.
Absolutely. It just was killing her that her grandchildren could not go to school. And
It's so interesting because we see today, look at all these years forward, and there's still the divide,
yes,
the holy wars and the divide between
Yes.
Christians and Jews and and other religions.
yes,
And so this has been going on for many
Many
years.
many.
So it's very interesting, and all that changes based on marriage. So
Exactly.
you were born, but she was born, your grandmother, of Gentiles.
Yeah.
But because she married a Jewish man and chose to convert, she became Jewish.
Yes.
But it's still coming from Gentiles.
Right.
Fast forward, you and your siblings were able to go back to school
Right. She saw to that we could.
because you were at least a quarter Christian
Yes.
in the eyes of the
Yeah.
administration.
Exactly. So
And
anyway, I went back to school, finished high school. The war was raging then, but between the French and the Arabs. De Gaulle told the Arabs they could have their country back after over 100 years. And the French were fighting that. They lost a lot of people to conquer Algeria. It was a colony to begin with and became a thriving, beautiful country. And so then, fast forward, my sister married a GI and came to America during the war, before her husband came back from the war. In 1945, he came back and joined her in Kansas. And then my other sister, when she found out her husband was back in Tennessee, she came to the United States and married him as soon as they could. So now I had a place to go.
They said, Julie, come.
Yeah, come.
Come marry an American GI? Did they already have it in mind for you?
Not a GI, but they knew my husband. They knew that he was attending Denver University. And my sister, Raymond, had a girlfriend who was his French professor. And he was learning French at the university. He wanted to be in the diplomatic corps or teach French. But by the time I met him, he spoke fluent French. And I spoke fluent English.
So how long were you in America before you met him? Was it fairly quickly?
Right away,
he was
away.
Friends with
Right away.
Your brother-in-laws?
Right.
Brothers-in-law?
Yes, they invited him. He had sent some roses ahead of time to welcome me. And he was my first date.
Your first date in America?
First date
Michael
in America.
Keith O'Rourke.
Michael Keith O'Rourke. And so...
nice Irish name.
He fell right away in love with me.
Well, of course.
I don't know. But when I said, I have to go back, I have a visa. He said, no, I'm not going to let you go back. You'll stay here. I'm going to marry you, and you will stay here. Well, when I wrote to my parents that Michael O'Rourke wanted to marry me, my father wrote to my sister and said, the happiness of your little sister is in your hands. She wants to marry a foreigner.
Well, a foreigner, just like they did.
Yeah.
So it was okay for them, but he was concerned about you.
Yes, he didn't want the third daughter to be lost to America. That was enough. And so then I came, and then 3 months later, we were married.
At 18?
At 18. And the reason we didn't go all the way to 6 months, which was my visa was for 6 months, is because not knowing better, I made my return trip a week later on the Queen Mary. But you couldn't do that. With a visa, you have to come back exactly 6 months, not a day more. So he got in touch with the
authorities.
And the French, the French authorities, but anyway, the American Immigration Service said no. She either has to go back to France and come back in. And imagine redoing the papers again, and my parents saying no this time.
Once they had you back, they wouldn't let you. Maybe they weren't going to let you come back to America. You had your fun. You had your vacation.
I had my vacation. And so then my father wrote to my other sister and said, no, it's impossible. Have her take the first boat home. So my sister said, well, what do you think? I said, what do you think? They said, well, you're not going back. And my husband, who was my fiancé by then, said, no, she's not going back. So I had a choice to go back to Canada, France, or Mexico. I chose Mexico because we were living in Denver, Colorado. And that was the closest. And so I went to El Paso. My husband was in constant correspondence with the American ambassador in Mexico. And he made arrangements for me not to be there too long. It took 6 months for me since I was married, I didn't have to get out right away. But I was also pregnant with your mom, with my daughter. By the time I was allowed to go to Mexico to come back in, I was 7 months pregnant. And I had a little suitcase like this. I couldn't take much. I didn't expect to spend overnight there. The consul made arrangements for me to get a room. So he had this chauffeur drive me to the hotel.
You went by yourself?
Yes.
You went by yourself to Mexico, and it was just part of the requirements, the legal requirements?
Yes, it was either Mexico, Canada, or France. And my husband
To go
chose
there
Mexico
and turn around to come back.
the next day. So anyway, I got off the train and I fell on my knees. My belly made me fall on my knees.
Wow.
So finally somebody came and helped me up. Anyway, a few months later, your mom was born. And so that was the first of
In
my
Colorado.
3 children in Colorado. My sweet girl. And today she's a grandmother of 9 grandchildren. And you were her first child. And you were my first grandchild. The most beautiful baby I've ever seen. Yes, you.
Yeah.
You, my darling
The
Tina.
firstborn grandchild
Yes.
on
now,
both sides of the family. So
and now I have many. I am blessed. I have 11 grandchildren.
I will be blessed if I follow with this beauty here in the maternal line.
Yes. Thank you.
So you had my mom,
Yes.
and then 2 more. Or
And
2
2 more,
brothers.
Michael
2 sons.
and David. Excuse me.
Yeah. Michael and David.
Excuse me.
No worries. So happy you're here. It's amazing.
Yes.
I always think I know all the stories because I ask you questions, over time, over the years,
Yes.
and yet there's always new things
There's always
to learn.
more, right?
Yeah, and it's so interesting. We take for granted
Yes.
the people that we're closest to,
Yes.
family, friends, our partners,
Yes.
and we think we know everything already.
Yes, and we don't.
And we don't. There's
No.
always so much more to learn and to know about each other. And so I'm question queen, so I love to ask a lot of
Yes.
questions, and that's how I learn. And your daughter taught me that well,
Yes.
Ask questions of others. That's how you learn. You already know about you,
Yes.
and so be about other people and see
Yes.
what you can learn.
This is
And
so
so I
true.
thank you for sharing all of this
Yes.
with us.
I'm happy to. The joy of this too is that I got to bring my mother to this country before she died. I had her with me 3 years in Europe. My husband was military, so we lived 1 year in Germany and 2 years in France.
With the little kids. Yeah,
With
your
the little
youngest,
kids.
my Uncle Dave, was born in La
La
Rochelle,
Rochelle, France. He was started in Germany, and I wanted him to be born in France, not in Germany.
And you made it happen.
I made it happen. And so I had Michael. Michael became a very good businessman, graduated twice from Stanford University
After West Point.
after West Point. And then he's retired now. He lives in Australia.
Down under.
Yeah, he has 3 children and 8 grandchildren. And then David is my youngest. He was born in La Rochelle, France, as you just said. And he has 5 sons. And he has 2 grandchildren.
Yes. Yes.
And he is quite happy. He's going to have a 3rd grandchild in September.
That's exciting.
Yes, very exciting.
And so how many greats now?
I have the 20th coming
The
in
20th
September.
he's the 20th on
Yes,
the way.
yes.
It's a boy?
We don't know.
Oh, we don't know.
They called when they were 20 minutes pregnant.
Let everybody know.
Let everybody know.
Right. And so,
And so I got to have my mother come to this country and see the grandchildren that she did not know.
did I meet your mother? No. No, of course
No.
not. What am I thinking about?
No, because she died in 1958.
Right. It's, but
But,
grand-père,
but you got to meet
I
my
met,
father.
yes, I met your father. I was just a
Yes.
little one, but I remember.
Little one. And yes, I was only 30, not quite 38 when you
I
were
know.
born.
You said, I can't become a grandmother before 40. What's happening here?
Yes. And my father said, "You're lucky. You're going to get to see your granddaughter married."
That's true.
And it's true. It was
That's
so
true.
true. So
And
anyway.
so as I'm the first of the three girls.
Yes.
And so we have 9.
Yes.
Mom has 9, as
Mom
you
has
said,
9.
grandchildren.
And you spearhead.
I spearheaded. Hey, maybe I can have that for like a logo. A
There you go.
I'm the spearhead.
Yes. So that's a lovely thing.
And so look at how many celebrations that you have had over the
Yes.
years. And so it started with 3 children, a couple years. Husband was in the military. My grandfather,
Yes.
the Korean War.
Korean War. He was wounded many times on the same day. And
20 sometimes with, a machine gun or something.
everything,
Crazy that he survived.
Everything crazy that he
Yeah,
survived.
received the Purple Heart.
Oh yeah, he got several medals because he brought back all of his soldiers. He was a platoon leader, and he brought them all back so that they could get attention, and so they could get their wounds taken care of, because everybody was wounded, including himself. But he carried them all back, and so he got some wonderful.
He had a nickname. He had a nickname in the Korean War, right?
He did.
Was it Sherman Tank? The Sherman Tank, because he was so strong and bringing everybody back.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's already had a
I didn't know that. So anyway, you are blessed enough to see 3 children in college.
That was the next thing I was just going to say, is that right now I have 3 children in college.
Yes.
And to think that you were a college-aged
Yes.
young woman
Yes.
having
When I got
children
married.
with a husband in the military, living in it, coming to America, going to another country,
Right.
and your husband is away at war.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Oh yeah. I
I
wanted.
can't imagine.
Yeah. I wanted another baby, and then he said, "Well, if I don't come back, you'll just have Amy. But if I come back, I hope to have more children." And before, he had 1 month leave, and during that month, Mickey was started,
Was conceived.
was conceived,
Yes.
and so that was good. That was good. And then David was conceived when I joined him in Germany. See, when you get away from somebody, something happens to you.
Right.
So that's it. And now,
And so what a journey.
What a
So
journey.
you were, and raising children and ups and downs. And so what was that like? I mean, it had to be challenging. Different
was.
cultures. And how about the religion and raising the decision how you would raise children?
Oh,
and,
yes, that too. I had my share of that. When I was little, 3 years old, I went to stay for a while with my aunt and uncle we lived in Lyon, France. And they had no children, and they were delighted to have me. They were taking me shopping, they were giving me whatever I wanted. And my aunt put me in a little Catholic school because she was born Catholic. My family was very truncated. There was still to this day, there are many, many people who have married outside our religion, and they're not unhappy. So, after the war, things changed for my parents because they were not so, because we were living in such danger that they accepted whatever was coming. I'm glad they were that intelligent to do that.
Were they practicing?
Oh, yes.
Okay, they were practicing
Yes.
Jews even though it was...
Yeah, we were Orthodox. But when I was in France visiting my uncle, my aunt put me in a little Catholic school. I'm 3 years old. And I had to recite the Catholic prayer 4 times a day.
The Lord's Prayer.
The Lord's Prayer. So when I got home, my father was saying prayers in Hebrew, and I was waiting to say my prayer, the Lord's Prayer.
Our Father who art in heaven, and you're saying, what's going on? What's this Our Father?
What is going on here? I don't understand what they're saying. And so anyway, but that school was a good school for me, except that I was left-handed. And they tied my left hand and forced me to write my letters with my right hand. So to this day, I'm left-handed, but I write with my right hand.
And why was it deemed wrong to be left-handed, to write left-handed?
Well, let me tell you, in France, gauche is left. So it was...
The word left, the word is gauche.
Gauche.
Yeah.
And so when you say that someone is gauche, they are not doing the right thing.
It has 2 meanings. It
Yes,
means
2
left,
meanings.
but it's also, there's an interpretation.
Because it comes from that, so that if you are left-handed, you're not right.
You're not right. No pun intended. You're not
Right.
right.
You're not right. And
you're not right if you're left.
If you're left, you're not right. Yeah.
We won't go into the political tangent of that.
Yes. So it was not politically correct to be left-handed.
I see.
And so my brother Charlie, also left-handed, was not forced. But then he went to a public school. When he was 3, he went to the preschool, which was not Christian.
Okay.
He went to the public school. So anyway, they taught me to read. And I remember that I got a prize. I got a big book because I could read at the end. They taught me to read.
So they rewarded you with a big book to read.
Yeah, you get this wonderful book. And everybody wanted a big book. I got it.
What was the book?
Who knows? I was 3 years old. I can't remember.
But you remembered the Lord's Prayer.
Who can forget it 4 times a day?
So you married a Catholic man. Was my grandfather was...
He was not Catholic anymore.
He was raised Catholic?
He was
formally, he went to Catholic school? Or?
He went to Catholic high school. And he left the church. Number one, his mother left her own church to marry a Protestant second husband.
Okay.
So 2 of the older daughters left home. They went to live in Los Angeles instead of Iowa. And then secondly, he was extremely brilliant. And he wanted to read everything. And he wanted to find out who Moses was. So that meant he had to read the Old Testament. And they told him if he read the Old Testament, he would be excommunicated. There were books that they called on the index.
The index meaning like forbidden.
That you're forbidden. So he gave up. He gave up going to a university with he would have been paid for. Can't remember.
Scholarship.
With a scholarship, a Catholic university, and he instead enlisted for 2 years in the Air Force. And when he got out, he was allowed to go to university free. So when he got out, he went to Denver University, and it was paid for because he had spent 2 years
In the Air Force.
in the Air Force.
I see.
So I met him at that time that he was going to university, and he didn't have a he didn't have a Catholic, he didn't have a religion. He used to call himself I forgot the name of it.
Atheist?
No,
No.
it's somebody who would think that God used to exist, but he gave up on people.
That God gave up on people?
Yes.
Hmm.
So he thinks that God gave up on people. So I forgot what that's called. Anyway, when I met him, I said, I'm not going to marry Catholic. He said, you don't have to. I said, your family. He said, you're not marrying my family. But I suffered.
You suffered.
They blamed me for everything. That he left the church, that because of this, because of that, the kids aren't baptized, that this and that. So I suffered, but it's okay.
Did you talk about religion?
No.
God, spirituality, raising the
Oh,
kids?
yeah.
You kind of.
Well, it's
How did the two of you, I guess, yeah, my question would be how the two of you reconcile, your upbringing, your beliefs.
well, I told my husband, I said, would you become Jewish? He said, that would kill my mother. I said, well, we don't want her to die. But
Great Scott.
Amy called her Great Scott. Anyway,
So,
she was allowed to
did he
marry a
convert?
Protestant. No.
Okay.
He wanted at one point to become Jewish. He had my brother start to teach him the Jewish alphabet and so forth. But no, he didn't do it. And
So you sort of agreed the children, like my mother and her two brothers, wouldn't be formally raised Jewish or Catholic Christian.
well, I listened to something that doesn't make sense because I was young.
Yes.
He said, with all the love he has for his children and for me, he said, no. He said, why don't we wait until they are older and they can choose the religion they want? They're both great religions. But that didn't happen. That didn't happen. It happened that they didn't choose their religion, but they chose their spouses who were different religion. Okay? But none of them became anything.
Right.
Today I can say I'm proud of my children, not because they're not believers, but they are believers. They believe in a great being. They also believe in the 10 Commandments. And they're wonderful people.
They are.
They're moral. I mean, they have their
Very
sense.
high integrity.
Oh, incredible. I never got a call because they were mean or abusive or spoke badly to somebody. I mean, I'm just proud of them. They became wonderful people.
And then, of course, their offspring and their offspring's offspring.
Yes, right. You
Started with you.
started, and
Started
you,
with
my
you.
darling.
So think of how many people are here on this planet and what we are doing
Yes.
that started with you,
Yes.
right? And so when we go all the way back to your grandmother, and she was given up to be raised by a midwife, and all the different things with the wars,
That was the war. The wars did terrible things.
just what they, who is not here and
Yes.
couldn't have been here, and all of that.
Yes. I have two nieces who live today in Israel, the mother and the daughter. They both have families. And the daughter has 7 children, 2 from her children and 5 from her second marriage.
Blended family.
And they live in Jerusalem and in Gedi. And they left France because of the anti-Semitism that is so present now in France. That is a terrible
it's
thing.
on the rise, and they're in Israel, unfortunately, what's been
And
going on.
yeah, with Hamas, it's a horrible thing.
Yeah, what's happening?
Yes. So during my youth, I heard about what was going on with the French Jews who were, and European Jews all over Europe that were sent to Germany to death camps. And I know how it hurts when you're a kid and you hear about what's going on, and you don't know if next month your parents are going to be sent and what else is going to happen to you. The first thing is, okay, you can't raise the flag, and then you can't belong in school. And then, so you see, and your parents not having any money, your mother makes soap. I mean, can you imagine that?
In a constant state of fear and anxiety. Constant state of fear and anxiety.
Constant. And during the war, after the Allies landed, every night we were bombed by the Germans. Every night, sometimes twice. So to go to an underground place where we could, below, we were on the 5th floor. We had big apartments. We lived in apartments. Algeria is made like that. And
many people living in small spaces.
But we didn't live in small places.
No?
We had apartments. The apartments were big, like.
Oh, okay.
According to how many children you have.
Oh.
You have big apartments.
Nice.
We had a big apartment. And so, anyway, that was every night. We had to go down 5 floors and then cross a courtyard. And then in the next building, we go underneath. As soon as we got there, boom, boom. To this day, when the thunder comes, I am afraid.
Right.
Of the noise.
It brings you right back to
back.
Bomb shelters and.
Absolutely. The noise is horrible. The sound of it. So today, any big sound, even though I was 10 years old.
Of course.
Or 12, 10, 11, 12, 13.
These things impact us.
They impact us. So that's my story.
Well, that's only a small part of your story, and there's no sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
I want to fast forward to, so you were married for almost 30 years to my grandfather, and after you divorced, you reinvented yourself.
Yes.
You were in your late 40s.
Yes.
And so tell us about that, moving forward from, your late 40s, raising 3 children from the time you were young.
Yes.
And so
I learned real estate. I went to school for real estate. And I sold real estate for 26 years in California. Mostly
Northern
in
California.
Where?
Northern California, San Francisco, Bay Area.
The Bay Area and Central Coast.
Yes.
Central Coast was...
So beautiful there.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And so I bought myself a nice house by the water, by the beach. And it was, it was between Monterey, Carmel. I lived in
Pacific Grove,
which was the best in the world. 2 blocks from the beach. The sea's incredible. And when I decided to move there, I had an apartment before for 11 years, saving as much as I could, buying little houses, fixing them, and reselling them a year later. And I did that for 11 years until I bought my house by the beach. And when I decided to move there, you came and visited me.
Yes,
and your
more than
sisters.
once. Yeah,
More than once.
it was wonderful.
And
And you were practicing. I remember you were in real estate in the Bay Area, and then once you had
Yes.
moved to Pacific Grove,
yes,
continuing in that area
continuing
with your smart suits
with my
that
suits
you wore. I remember your smart suits.
and the curly hair like Louis XIV.
You still have gorgeous hair. I mean,
Yeah.
seriously.
And
And so how
anyway,
is
I
that?
decided when I would move there that I was going to do 3 things because I was not dating for 17 years after my divorce.
What?
Yeah, I decided I couldn't get married. I was dating, but
Oh, you had
seldom.
dated, right, right.
Seldom. But I thought, when I moved there, I'm going to take ballroom dancing lessons because when I was young, I was a good dancer. I was going to take stained glass making, and I was going to go back and play bridge because I was already a good bridge player, and I wanted to go back and pick it up again. And so I did that. As soon as I started playing bridge, I met my second husband. And he got married. He got me with my leases running out.
He told you his lease was running out?
Yeah. And so we were married 4 months after we met.
Meaning like my lease is running out. Can I slide right into your gorgeous Pacific Grove?
Yeah. He was living in an
Property?
apartment. He was in his divorce
He was going through the
situation.
divorce,
Yeah. He had a beautiful house before that. And so, yes, he got me with this. And anyway, we got married soon. And he was a wonderful man, Sam Ehrenberg.
He was a pharmacist?
Pharmacist. He was also
Jewish?
yes, but he was also buying and selling sculptures and paintings.
An art dealer.
He was an art dealer. Thank you for reminding me, my patient. Yes. And so anyway, he and his ex had a gallery in Carmel that they were in the process of selling. And he was working as a manager of a pharmacy in 2 places, Walgreens and Costco. And as soon as I walked into Costco, he would say in the loudspeaker, "Little Julie O'Rourke, come to the pharmacy." Anyway, we were married for a short while. Sam passed away by an accident caused by the hospital, by the doctor, actually, his heart doctor. He had had a stent in his heart, and one night he did what he always did. Every night after dinner, he would go down to the yogurt shop and buy some yogurt. He's
from Brooklyn, right?
Brooklyn.
Yogurt.
Yogurt. He said, "I'm going to go get some yogurt, honey." and so 10 minutes later, I got a call from the police. He had passed out on the floor. When he did that, he banged his head. And he had a slow bleed, which they found out after he died. Anyway, so The police came. I followed the police to the hospital. They thought he should have a CAT scan. The CAT scan was not working.
The
In
CAT
Pebble
scan's
Beach,
not working in Pebble Beach. Okay.
there was a hospital. They're the
Should have had to
closest.
get
So
after
they
Clint
said,
Eastwood for that.
yeah. So then we went to the next one, which was 20 miles away
Yeah.
in Salinas. And they said that the next day they would give him a test. And so we couldn't find his heart doctor. He was out to dinner. So the doctor who replaced him didn't know what to do because it wasn't his doctor.
He was awake though. He had come to.
Yes.
Right.
And he said to me, I went, and I said, honey, he didn't want to stay.
Because of a stent, they gave him a blood thinner. I think that's
They gave him
part
a
of what
blood
happened.
thinner, and the blood thinner killed him.
Because he had a slow bleed that they didn't know about because they didn't
So
have
that
the
gave
equipment
him-
to check his head.
It gave him a giant stroke,
Yeah.
and he died right in front of us.
Yeah.
I mean, I told him to
terrible.
keep him alive until his children could come from Los Angeles to see him. I donated some of his, he wanted that. Yeah, some of his organs. So we were only married a year and a half.
Is that all it was?
I know.
So you
and
were
that-
only with him not even 2 years.
Not even.
Because, yeah, you said you were married within 4 months of meeting him.
Yes. So that's my sad story of
Yeah,
Sam,
of
but
Sam Ehrenberg.
wonderful memories.
Yes.
Great guy.
And you're resilient.
Well,
You're
there's been,
resilient in life, yeah, from everything that you've been through.
I had to.
And you've always had a great circle of friends and stayed yourself. You're very social
Yes, I am that. Yeah.
with a lot of friends and active, and you continue with the bridge.
Right now, right now I'm not playing because recently I stopped driving. And I had a problem, pains in my spine, in my back. And I thought that I better not tell my friends I'm coming to play bridge if I'm hurting, I mean, you can't do that.
Right,
So for right now, I'm not playing, but in my head I am.
right. Exactly.
And now I'm lucky because I am a mile and a half away from you.
It's so great.
I'm
can
so happy.
just pop over. Yeah.
Yeah.
So from me living inland
Yes.
and in some beautiful gated communities, raising my kids, and then moved to my condo on the ocean down the street from you a couple years ago. It's been great.
And you come by, have coffee or just chocolate, or we eat our dinner together.
I catch you up on
Yes.
all things Tina Lizzio.
Yes.
I cracked up. I remember when we all first moved here to South Florida 19 years ago, and you were affiliating with the synagogue and getting to know people. And you
Yes.
said, you might know my granddaughter, Tina Lizzio, but she's not Jewish.
Because you were dating a Jewish man.
Right, at the time.
At
At
the
the
time,
time, right.
yeah.
And so so mom married to my father,
Yes.
Italian and a Christian Catholic, was raised Catholic, went to Catholic school.
He did.
And so when he and my mother were pregnant with me, unplanned, certainly not an accident, but unplanned, he said that he wanted to have his children baptized and raised Catholic.
Yes.
And so, my understanding is that mom said, okay, she's being exposed and
Yes.
learning about both Judaism and Christianity from both you and my grandfather. She was open to that. And so
Yes.
we do have this diverse family,
We do.
yeah. So it's great, and it's been great for me. I remember sitting with extended family members on your side at many Passover and
Yeah.
Seder dinners and
Yeah.
celebrating
Remember?
the high holidays and
And they would have you go read.
yes, I
Read
got
at Pesach.
yeah, exactly. As a young girl.
Yes.
And so at the same time, I'm, with other family and
Yes.
going
Doing
to
other things.
CCD classes and
Yes, and you reciting Our Father instead of me.
Right. Now I was learning the Lord's Prayer at the same time. And
Yeah.
so, what would be your advice for people today coming together? How important is it to align with religion or spiritual beliefs? Many people, we have a rise, and I see we're attempting to raise consciousness around the world and on the planet as people look to leave formal practices,
Yes.
formal religious
Yes.
practices,
Yes.
and having with a belief in God and a higher power and source and understanding. We are our consciousness, and so how do you feel today?
Oh, I believe that everyone in one's life, everyone has met with situations or happenings that were horrible and where you must turn to something or someone. I think it's important to have someone, maybe not someone, something to believe in order to encourage you to do the good thing, the right thing. And because we are weak sometimes when we meet some stuff that is so hard to take. So I do think we need that. We also need to live by the Ten Commandments. I think it's important to know, not what's going to happen to you if you don't, but you should know them.
As guiding principles.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think the Ten Commandments are really, and you don't have to be Jewish to believe in the Ten Commandments. Many religions practice it.
Correct.
So I do think that, and I think that too much is put on going too far with any religion. I don't think that's a good thing.
Too strict.
Too strict. It's not good to be too strict in any religion. It makes people change. It makes people not believe in themselves.
What do you tell me more about that? In what way?
Well, you open yourself when you have an open mind to things.
Yes.
Certain things, not everything, but certain things. And I think that if you open your mind to certain things, you grow. You grow. And you grow in intelligence. And you grow as a person. Because you can't teach anything to your children unless you grow. Every year you grow.
And we evolve.
And
Well,
have to
I'm a
evolve.
big believer of that philosophy.
Yes, evolving is absolutely a necessity.
Yeah.
So,
And
so
so
that's-
so the formality of some religions has people closed off to learning from others and their perspectives.
right, absolutely.
Yeah, and the importance of that. And how do you see things for women today? What advice, given all that you know now, after 92 plus years,
Yes.
what would you say to let's just even go back to, if you backed up the clock to 30 years ago.
Yes.
So you're 50.
Yes.
That's 40 years ago. You're 50
Yes.
years old. And so what would you forget your 18-year-old self for a second, what would you tell your 50-year-old self after you've got married young, you raised children, and you got divorced and you're going out there again? So looking back at the Julie who chose a career for herself, went out and, okay,
Yes.
I've raised my children, I'm going to go work now, I'm going to choose this profession, and
Yes.
I guess I'm going to go out there and start looking for and dating other men and exploring what else is out there. So
Yes.
what would you say, given what you know now, to the 50-year-old Julie?
Well, I took a job because I didn't want to be needy. But I wish I had been better educated. So I think that when you have children, it's important that they be educated, unless they don't want to be. And then if they don't want to be, then they must be the best at what they're choosing.
Agreed.
They can be a dressmaker, they can be a race driver, they can be whatever, but they must do it with passion and they must do it well.
Right.
So that's all.
And so choosing not to be needy, working so that you would have your own money, so that you wouldn't have to rely on a man.
Right.
And so you're wishing that you were more educated. I understand putting the emphasis on children being
Yes.
educated, but for yourself, you
Yes.
missed having advanced
Yes,
degrees because you came
exactly.
to America at 18,
Yes.
got married, had kids,
3 kids, boom.
and so you missed what you were able to then, give your
Yes.
children later.
Yes, but I educated myself.
And I think that's it, to let women know that it's never too late, even if you don't go to
Yeah,
college
yeah.
when you're 18.
I think that constant reading to educate yourself, traveling, learning.
Well, now what's amazing is the advancements in technology.
Yes.
We can see that there's so much information
Yes.
available to us to learn
And I've traveled
anything
the
and
world.
everything. And travel. So yeah, how about travel? The
I've
importance of
traveled the
travel.
world. And I mean,
And you did a lot, and you did most of that actually after divorce.
oh, yes.
Yes. So
Oh, yes.
placing importance on travel, which is part of growing and learning. And
Yeah, because I don't call travel moving 25 times.
right,
He
being
was
married to a military.
Yeah, he was military, and we moved 25 times in 29 years.
Yeah,
I mean, your mom went to 19 schools,
it's crazy.
and she was a wonderful student.
I know, she was top of her class.
National Honor Society.
Yes,
But the intelligence was there.
yeah,
The need to know.
yes. We all have that
Yeah.
curiosity.
We all have that curiosity.
Yeah, and so much so, and so my grandfather was actually a fun fact, right? You filled out the application
Yes.
for him to be on the show Tic-Tac-Toe.
Yes.
3 little
Yes,
kids,
I
and said,
sent
this
the-
man
yeah.
is so smart.
Yeah, and what
Tell us about that for a minute.
Oh, yes. I used to listen to that because I loved quiz shows and I love to learn. And I was home with my kids. And I used to write the questions. And your grandpa was extremely smart. I mean, the guy was almost a genius. And after dinner, I would ask him the questions, and he would always answer right. So I wrote to Tic-Tac-Toe. I didn't say anything to him. And we were in Michigan. We took at the West.
You went to Western Michigan?
Western Michigan University. In Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Yes.
It used to be a college, and
Yes.
later became a university.
Yeah.
And so I wrote them a letter. I didn't say anything to him, and they didn't answer. And then the second time I wrote again, I said, my husband knows all the answers. The third time I sent his picture, military captain, and he was good looking. And I said, my husband knows everything. You should have him on your show. So they told him, if you find yourself in New York, come take a test here for our show. So this was daytime. First you have to go to daytime. So we were visiting my mother-in-law in
New York?
Iowa.
Okay.
And then they wrote a letter, dear Mike, if you find yourself in New York, come and visit us, take the test. So he went and he won for 2 days. So he won like $18,000.
And this is
Long
like
time
what,
ago.
the late 50s or something?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that was a lot
He
of money.
wasn't even 30 years old yet.
We didn't even have a car.
Right.
Okay. We had left a house in France where we lived for 2 years with a maid and a nanny. Okay. And I had almost a nervous breakdown because
You came back to America and it was too expensive even then.
no car, nothing.
Yeah.
One kid got sick. I took all 3 kids to the doctor, by bus. Yeah. So anyway.
So he was up $18,000 from the 2 days?
Yes.
Okay.
So then, but he impressed them. So then at the end of the 2 days, because of his presence, he went as a captain.
Okay.
And so they decided to do something with him. And so they did, he became their poster boy for the Army. Get choice, not chance. You join U.S. Army. So now Washington wanted him to go because the enlistment went up. Kalamazoo, Michigan, the university,
right,
wanted him, because he taught there, the students came more and more. So now the Army said, we'll give him time off so he can go. So he went, he was there 5 months.
Nobody could beat him.
Nobody could beat him.
5 months straight.
5 months
and
straight.
he was in prime time at night, right?
At night, once a week.
And what was the peak? He was over 100,000.
He was 140,000. I said, you have to quit.
Did you tell him to quit?
Yeah.
Much sooner?
No, I at 100,000. I said you should quit. And then his ego didn't allow it. And so he had this thing where if he couldn't answer, then he wouldn't answer. He would lose it. So when he came down to 110, because they take away money from you if you don't answer.
Yeah.
When he came home that night, I said, mm-mm.
You're not walking with
You're
less
not walking.
than 100,000.
So yeah, he got 110,000.
Yeah.
And so that was a good thing. But he did a good thing for the Army. And a long time he was the poster. Good looking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Poster child for the Army and
yeah.
brains and brawn.
Yeah.
He had both brains and brawn. So
Absolutely.
wow, that's a lot of money then.
That was a lot of money then.
Yeah. So that's a game changer.
Yes.
Very, very interesting.
And he was very good to me. He gave me a beautiful mink stole.
I remember you got some beautiful things.
I got a nice ring. Later, I got a pink convertible.
A pink convertible. I thought.
I was when we moved to Arizona. I used to speed all the time on campus in a post, and it was always 15 miles an hour, and they would always stop me. The military police. You know how fast you're going? No, I didn't speed. My car speeds.
I'm going to remember that one in case
They said, it's a good thing you're cute. But anyway.
And they probably liked your French accent.
My French accent, my pink convertible. I was not bad looking either.
You still look amazing. You still look amazing. So we have so much fun. I appreciate, look, I share all kinds of things with you about my travels and my work and the importance of leading what I live. And so you, yes, as a leader in our family and the matriarch, and you do lead what you live, and you're open and sharing, which is so amazing.
And I'm honored today, and I'm honored to be here.
And I just aim to follow and you give me wonderful advice.
Thank
You
you.
really do. Some really funny stuff.
Thank you, Tina.
Especially when it comes to relationships. I just crack up when it comes to that.
What about asking me if I like Indian food?
Do you like Indian food?
Not to eat.
So you don't want to go to the place over here. You're not a curry.
I can't
you,
eat because I broke out with the Indian food.
Oh, okay.
So
you
that's
have
why I say not to eat.
Okay, not to eat. So we left out that detail that you are, in fact, a French gourmet cook, and you used to teach
Yes,
French gourmet
I
cooking.
taught French
One of
cooking.
the many talents that you have. And as a painter,
I paint.
right? You paint. So you sew and you paint. So your mother would
And
be
I
so
cook.
proud, not just making soap. You went on to do a lot more things. And I am blessed to have several paintings from you. My favorite flower is sunflowers, and copying a Monet beautifully, a Botero, Rape of Europa, Botero. These, incredible
A
Monets
lion.
and the lion. Just so many beautiful paintings.
Your kids on the trampoline?
Yes. Yeah, painting from photographs.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
so many different creative talents.
Well,
So I'm so grateful. And so I know there's still so much more for me to learn.
So next time.
The questions are going to never end.
Never end.
And continue. And so I really appreciate that I'm able to share with you so much of my life.
Thank you.
And the space that you hold for me.
Thank you, Tina.
I love you so
And
much.
you for
I
me.
love you so much.
I love you.
And thank you so much, because this was the first, and we're going to remember this, right? We will remember Lead What You Live podcast with Tina Lizzio, and Julia Odette Ehrenberg was the first.
Thank you. Thank you, darling. I love you.
Thank you all so much for tuning in. This was my first Lead What You Live podcast with me, Tina Lizzio, and it was so incredible for me personally to kick off this podcast. It will be a weekly podcast coming to you with incredible guests who lead what they live. And so there was no better person for me to start off than none other than my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, Julie O'Rourke Ehrenberg. And I have learned so much from this woman about life and love and leadership. And so at 92 years young, to be able to sit with her today in the studio and go through her incredible life, talking about so many different things, all of the different trials and tribulations, challenges. We talked about, religion and marriage and having children, and so much insight and wisdom that comes from her knowledge and her experience that she has passed on to her family, to her children, her grandchildren, and her great-grandchildren. So for me to be more than half a century and still be able to sit here today with my grandmother talking about what it is to lead what you live is super special. Thank you all for those of you who did tune in. And going forward, you will see that I will have many unique and interesting leaders in their field, executives, entrepreneurs, founders who lead what they live. And what does that mean? What does that mean to lead what you live? It's more important to me than anything to be of integrity and to lead what it is that I actually am living. So my word for this year, 2024, is truth. And it's about seeking the truth, seeking my truth, speaking my truth. As a speaker, facilitator, coach, and consultant in life strategy, it is more important than ever that we all tap into what is true for us and step up and lead what we live. You can find me on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. I would love for you to subscribe. And so stay tuned for what's ahead. Thank you again.